Imposter syndrome is to do with lack of self-belief, and it has a tendency to happen more with women than it does with men, although men also have imposter syndrome on some levels.
Gwenno Dafydd, I'm absolutely honoured and delighted to have you here, our first guest for a long, long time. You're very welcome to the Empowering Family Health podcast.
Thank you, Joanne.
Really,
I'm very happy to be here. I love being with my Celtic cousins and I love being with you. So there we go.
Fantastic. Let me introduce Gwenno. So Gwenno is a kick-ass coach. And I'm going to ask her in a minute now why she calls herself a kick-ass coach. She's a writer, an actress, performer, singer. She's done so much work in her life, and she is an amazing coach. I've worked for her as well personally. Gwenno, tell us why people call you a kick-ass coach.
Well, it's because that's what I do. I take no prisoners. I actually try and smash through their negative beliefs. I really do have a lot of fun with people. I have been kicking my own arse my entire life because there have been challenges, there have been things that I've had to overcome, and the only person that has enabled me to come through all of these barriers has been myself. So I think being called a kick-ass coach by my clients, I'm quite happy with that, really.
Love it. And look, we all have challenges, don't we? Because I believe that we were really put on this earth to learn and grow through life lessons. And, today we're going to have a conversation about men and women and relationships. And we really do need relationships in our lives to thrive, really. We're unique individuals, and we need to get to know ourselves on a personal level, but also how we can communicate effectively with other people. So we're going to talk about men and women and how they interact with each other, and also maybe how our earlier childhood may have influenced that along the way as well. So Gwenno, can you start us off? First of all, I just want to get a little brief background about who Gwenno Dafydd is and why you're so amazing at all this coaching and why your passion is in this area.
Well, I started out when I was 11, and I just have to give a little quick mention to somebody called B.B. Freeman, who I hadn't seen for 53 years, and we had a really fabulous meeting yesterday on Zoom, and Bibi and I were fellow athletes, and when I was 11 we used to run up the cross-country course saying, I must improve my bust, hurrah, at last I've got a bra. And when I was in my teenage years, the only thing I wanted to be was an athletics and physical education teacher, and I would be up on the athletics track and I'd be coaching children, and I would be coaching them in cross country. I would be the netball captain, in the hockey team, I'd be the athletics captain, wow, the cross country captain, the pony club captain, I'd be class counsellor. I would be in a position where I would be coaching people and also listening to their concerns. So I've been a coach since a very early age, really. I've been doing it my entire life. It's just I didn't realize that that's what it was, and that I could actually make a living out of it eventually.
That's amazing to start so young, and I can really hear all them leadership skills being developed and in coaching people and keeping people accountable and really guiding them along the way as well, especially from a young age. So it's like the skill grew over many years, and I can hear that you're so passionate about children as well. That they have a happy and healthy childhood as well, and we've all been children, so it's a really important start in life. So tell us, Gwen, where can we start? Can you tell us or define, how are men different than women? And look, this is not about right or wrong. We are wired differently, and we do have differences, and we do complement each other. So that's what this is all about. And it's really been aware of this so that we can work more effectively. So can you tell us, what are the differences between men and women? Where do we start?
Well, I'm going to show you a book first of all. And this book is called Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And this is a book that was written 30 years ago by Dr. John Gray. And although it's 30 years old, there's still quite a lot of truth in that. And so I don't think I'm going to cover all the differences between men and women in a short Zoom session, but I will try. Men are from Mars, which is the god of war. Women are from Venus, which is the god of love. So we have very many differences. Women are more caring. They are channeled into the caring professions. That's why you will find more women who are nurses, who are now growing in the as doctors. But at one time when I was in school, there would be just male doctors. There were very, very few female doctors. So one of the differences is that we're conditioned by society to be the caring sex, the caring gender. So that's one issue. That has an impact on the fact that we are biologically different. We are the ones who can give birth. Men can't give birth. We have a lot of differences from the way that we perceive our position in society. We have very different levels of self-confidence. I did a podcast last week, and I actually wanted to bring this into this podcast, which was an Ofsted report in Britain about the fact that 9 out of 10 girls have been the victim of sexual harassment in their school career. Now, whether that is because they've been sent dick pics, or because they've had unwanted touching or name calling, or they've been shown pornography or whatever, I think this has had a very detrimental effect on women's self-esteem generally. So we have very different attitudes to sex. So it's a huge sort of subject. For example, women have a tendency to take their anger and send it inwards. Men will project their anger outwardly. That's why men have a tendency to be involved in fights more so than women. Although nowadays, with loutish behavior by young women, that may no longer be the case. But men are the warriors. The women tend to be more warriors. Now, in my family, I was the warrior, and my husband and daughter were the warriors. So, and for that reason, those patterns can shift. I have always been a tomboy. I grew up wanting to be outside, helping my dad with the farming, and I also wanted to climb trees. I wasn't particularly drawn to those feminine type of activities, whereas my sister was. So we have different levels of risk taking. Men are risk takers, women aren't. This has an impact on, for example, when we apply for jobs. There's a really good piece of research that I looked at when I was writing the book that I wrote, which we'll come to later, hopefully. So I'll give it a good plug.
Yes, yeah, and I have that too.
But there was a piece of research that was conducted by the Welsh office, when it was the Welsh office at the time, and I was a campaign officer for Opportunity 2000 in Wales, and that was to promote equality and diversity in businesses throughout Wales.
Oh, wow.
And this piece of research, you will often see quoted elsewhere as a different piece of research, but it has the same outcome. And they were looking for reasons why women were not applying for positions as county councillors. And there would be a list of 10 criteria. Men would look at it and say, I can do 7 of those, I'm going to apply. Women would look at the 7 criteria and say, I can only do 7 of those, I'm not going to apply.
Yeah.
And men have generally, and we can see because of those reasons outlined in the Ofsted report, they go through life with a higher sense of entitlement, and also generally, and I know it's a generalization, they have higher levels of self-esteem and self-confidence. They will apply for a job when they think, oh, I can only do a bit of it, I'll learn on the job. Whereas women will think, I can't do all of the job, I'm not going to apply. So those are some of the reasons.
There's a lot to be said now, in fairness, about, having self-confidence and self-esteem. Like, that's really, really big, because that's when you're stepping into your power of who you are, and you're not afraid to be and do and act and all this kind of thing, and from what you said, men tend to have a lot more of that, and the entitlement, as you say, as well. And women, this more feminine energy, this more soft, caring, loving, and this is what's expected of women as well. So it's almost like, and this has been evolved over hundreds of years, really, Gwenno, hasn't it? And this whole, and it's really, it's really important that we have this inner strength to be able to have our values and appreciate things in life, and to be able to express ourselves and do be something in the world. And if we can't start at the level of our identity of who we are, then there's a big problem there. So that's what I can really hear in what you're saying.
Absolutely. And one of the things I want to sort of discuss as well is the imposter syndrome. You hear a lot about that. And I went on a course recently because I believe in the power of lifelong learning. So I can never not have enough knowledge. So imposter syndrome, for those of you who don't understand what that is something that's quite prolific in the performing world. You always think that your last job is your last job, because you just think you got there by, oh, it was just good luck, I was very lucky, I won't do it as well next time. Imposter syndrome is to do with lack of self-belief, and it has a tendency to happen more with women than it does with men, although men also have imposter syndrome on some levels. Now, on the course I went to, I realized that Michelle Obama will admit to having imposter syndrome.
Wow.
Men do not like to admit any weaknesses. So that's another difference. When I was looking at some aspects of the comedy industry and the use of humor for my book, what I noticed was that women are more prone to use self-deprecating humor, which is knocking themselves, making fun of themselves. Joe Brand said to me, well, I always used to make fun of myself before anybody else did. That's hence the fat jokes, the cream bun jokes, because it would mean that I got in there quicker than anybody else. Yes. Now, men do not like self-deprecating humor because it shows them as having a weakness. They don't appreciate it in women, and they don't appreciate it in men. So that was one of the findings. So men do not like to say that they're wrong. Women are more open to saying, I'm wrong. But we're also conditioned in life to believe that we are wrong and that we are to blame.
Yes.
Those are issues, I think.
That's brilliant. This is going to lead us nicely into the next question I'm going to ask you. So what I can really hear there, Gwenno, is the whole conversation around, and we know, like many of us know, that men don't really like to talk about what's wrong, what's wrong. I don't like the word wrong, but, any concerns that they have, because they see it as a sign of weakness, as you say. So this whole thing around vulnerability, and vulnerability is a very big feminine aspect of women, and both men and women do have this feminine energy, as we say. But this is a very big thing, is the vulnerability. We've been able to express a concern that we're having, and women will speak to each other and look for help and guidance, whereas men don't. And I love what you were doing. You were talking about comedy, and you wrote your book. Can you show us your book?
I certainly can.
Yes. So, sock it to them, sisters. Funniest, festy females.
Feisty.
Sorry. Oh my God. Feisty females. And tell us, Gwenno, tell us about that book and about the glass ceiling concept that you're talking about, and how this helped the female people get through a lot of blockages and limitations.
Well, when I was in my mid-30s, I realized that the sort of itinerant lifestyle that I'd had up until then, which was filming up in North Wales, directing theatre and education in West Wales, maybe doing some work in Bristol, Bath, all over the place, was no longer possible because by that time I'd become a mother. And my husband had a very good job working away in London. So he was earning good money. So one of us had to change their direction, and it was me. So I went and did a master's degree in women's studies, something I felt passionate about forever. And I did 2 years of my master's degree and then had to do a dissertation about women working in a non-traditional female environment. And because I was passionate about comedy and had always done comedy roles in college, in school, and also my professional life, I decided I wanted to look at female stand-up comics, because at that time it was 10 to 15% of all comics who were female. So that was a starting point. I wanted to find out what the barriers were. However, what this book actually is, it's a deconstruction of the glass ceiling through the prism of my passion, which is women in comedy. And I interviewed 94 different people working in the comedy industry worldwide. And that included 65 women doing stand-up comedy. And they included people like in Britain, Ronnie Ancona, Joe Brand, Jenny Eclair, Hattie Hayridge, Helen Lederer, Nina Wadia. The list is very extensive. And I also managed to meet and interview Joan Rivers, Amy Schumer, and lots of American comics that I interviewed at that time through, well, when I started off, there was no such thing as Zoom. There was no such thing as Skype. There was a telephone, and that was about it, really. You could just about email people, but it was mostly through letters. I had an awful lot of rejection slips from the people I approached. I also had lots of rejection slips from agents, but I carried on because I wanted to make sure that the knowledge that I'd unearthed was going to be able to be shared with the world, really.
That I can really see and hear the passion in that, Gwenno, because I mean, I was there in those days when the email was only starting to come out, and it was a big buzz thing, you know, to have an email sent or whatever. The internet was only coming out. So I can really get the amount of work that must have been involved writing to these people and then getting rejections, but still be driven because you really believed in the work that you were doing and this message that you wanted to get out there. I can really hear that. And I love how you do it all through comedy as well. It's just absolutely amazing. So hats off to you, Gwenno, for the work. And you've worked with so many big names as well, like really incredible people. So what's next for your book? I mean, it's just I have a copy of your book as well. You sent me a copy, so I'm absolutely delighted with that. Is there anything that you have planned coming next for your book?
I do. I don't think it got to the right places with the publisher that it was with. It was with a Welsh publisher. They're small. I'm very grateful to them for having published the book. It's got an ISBN number, but I am looking to find a company that is really willing to market it worldwide, because I interviewed people from around the world. I interviewed the youngest, the oldest, probably the tallest, the shortest, the first Black, the first Asian, the first Muslim, I have looked at women from every single aspect, you know, from disability, from ethnic background. I've got the first Indian woman there, the first South African woman. You know, I've got women who are pioneers, and I've got the first Latino. And so it's a very, very inspirational book. And I don't think it got to the right place, really. So if anybody out there is listening or looking at this podcast, please do get in touch with me, because I am looking at the next step. Yeah. I don't think this book is over, because the information that I've gleaned is really very helpful for, I mean, deconstruction of the glass ceiling. It's called the glass ceiling because it's invisible, because we do not know what it is. Exactly. But I know what it is, because I've really dismantled it pain by pain, because it's made up of things like sexual harassment, as I spoke about. You know, that has a really detrimental effect on our self-esteem. Yeah. And that's just name calling, bullying. If we're talking about the nth degree, which is actual sexual violence towards women. Now, don't let's underestimate the fact that stand-up comedy clubs are held in the evening, late at night. Let's not underestimate the fact that women have to get there, have to get home. If they don't have their own transport, then they have to go by public transport. Women are basically scared of being raped at night. Men are scared of being physically attacked. That's the two differences.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, if you look at the statistics with police, you'll find that the most dangerous time for young men is between 18 and 25, is when they would be attacked physically, when they're out and about. But women would get attacked sexually. And that's what makes us scared.
Yeah.
We live in a world where we are scared to function. We are scared to walk down narrow lanes. We are scared to go for a run. I'm not scared, because I'm not having anybody making me unable to go to places in my world because I'm going to be scared of someone physically attacking me. I'm not having that nonsense.
Yeah.
Lots of women do.
Yes. Yeah. And I can understand. And the next question I want to ask you, Gwenno, is for those people, and you mentioned, you gave us some numbers there, from young girls. So would you believe, and I can envision that there's a lot of problems growing up with relationships with men with trust issues? Do you see a lot of that?
Absolutely. I think it's, if one has had an unpleasant experience, then it's obviously going to have a detrimental effect on your attitude towards men. I mean, my hero when I was growing up was my dad, and he was the be all and end all. And but my father wasn't available when I was a teenager, so that has had a detrimental effect, because he worked very, very hard, and for no other reason. It wasn't as if he was a workaholic. He was a workaholic, but he wasn't an alcoholic or anything like that. He worked extremely, extremely hard, but wasn't present. So that has an effect on young girls. The first relationship we have is with a man, is with our father.
Yes.
So that is a structure that is very key and very, very crucial to our attitudes towards other men. And if we have negative experiences in our teenage years, whether that be from an external factor or from our the invisibility of our father for whatever reason, that can also have a detrimental effect on our ability to trust men. And I think the statistics in the Ofsted report are horrific. It means that practically every single girl in going through her education has had a negative effect.
Oh my God.
What is that going to do when we get to universities? I organised a march which was called Reclaim the Night. And I don't know if you're aware what Reclaim the Night was, but it was a feminist event. I think it was back in the 70s or 80s. For us to reclaim the streets. It's nowadays they're called Reclaim the Streets. But it was a knee-jerk reaction by me to create a protest here in Cardiff, because students, there were 2 young female students in their fresher week. So they were coming to university at the age of 18 with great hopes for the future, and they were raped. That first week.
Yeah.
So I actually organised a march to try and reclaim the streets, because we need for our young daughters to feel safe wherever they are. And I believe that, we have 2 ways of doing this. I mean, it's a mother's responsibility to enable her son to treat young girls respectfully. That's not always the case. It's not always possible because of peer pressure. When young boys are showing each other at the age of 13 and 14 pornography on their phones, how does that balance out? So that's one way of trying to show our young sons and nephews, whatever, that we are equal and that we need to show each other respect. The other way is physical activity on behalf of young women, because I can assure you that the vast majority of those women who were stand-up comics, most of them were tomboys when they were growing up, which meant that physical activity was a key element in their perception of who they were. I'm still a runner, if you can see there. I'm still running now at the age of 64. I can't go very far because I got 3 metal pins in my leg. But for me, the fact that I am physically strong, physically capable, gives me supreme confidence. And I think that young girls in secondary schools should be taught self-defense. Because let's not underestimate the fact that the horrific statistics are what they are. So we can't just change them like that. We have to be prepared for, for example, if somebody said to you, that pool is full of piranhas, what are you going to do? Just step in there? No, I'd get in there if I had to, wearing a metal suit, so that would protect me. So let's all, as young girls, encourage them to protect themselves in whatever way is needed.
Do you know what? I love what you said about our first relationship with men is with our fathers. And we often hear that when we grow up and we start our own families and we get married, that we often marry our father. So that's something that we tend to, because it's inherited in us, it's part of that conditioning, and we seem to attract that as well. And men and women, I love what you say, we balance each other out. What came to mind was this chalk and cheese kind of effect, right? Because the men have and look, women have a lot of male masculine energy as well, right? So this is not about the man and the woman. This is about the energies of the man and the woman, and how we're wired and what have you. But I think these traits, these energy traits or whatever, they really help to balance the relationships that we're in. It really helps to bring out the best. Like, when we talk about emotional vulnerability and be emotionally available, we talk a lot about that as well. And we can feel abandoned as a young child if that's not available in our upbringing from our mother and father. But so Gwenno, tell us a little bit about the role of the father, I suppose, in growing up. So I believe that they're seen as the main intake, or the money into the breadwinner. That's what I'm trying to come to, the breadwinner of the family. So that's how it's been seen over the years. And that's what a man likes to achieve, or likes to, they feel in their power, if you like, if that's what they're providing for the family. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yes. Let's wind back to my childhood. And my mother was a teacher. My father was a manager, a milk manager, and he used to go around the farms. And in my mother's time, you had something called the marriage bar. So when a teacher got married, they gave up their jobs, because at that time, the father was considered to earn enough to pay for a mortgage if they were going to buy a home, and to provide for that family. Now, that seems like cloud cuckoo land by now, because for a man to be earning sufficient money to pay for a mortgage and to pay for a family is no longer viable. Now, this goes back in Britain, I believe, to Margaret Thatcher's time, because she made a home a commodity. She made people think that they could make money out of their home, whereas before that, it was just somewhere where you lived, where you brought up your family. So what happened then was the prices skyrocketed, absolutely skyrocketed.
Wow, never.
And have continued to do so. And so going back to, so we're talking about in the 1950s, you still had the marriage bars 60 years ago, okay? So then if you climb now to, say, the 1980s, where, I'd gone to college, and I'd been in college and I'd studied to be a teacher, we were conditioned to think as girls that we would either become teachers or nurses. Now, if you jump to now, young women enabled to think that the world is their oyster and they can do whatever they want to.
Mm.
However, we still have gendered professions, and in these gendered professions, there are some professions that earn way more money than others, and those are the ones that men tend to go to.
Mm.
Now, I've lost my drift because I can't remember what the question was, but I'm hoping that I've answered
The
some.
breadwinners, yeah. So we're talking about men being the breadwinners in the family.
Men being the breadwinners is no longer the case, because nowadays young girls going through school have a concept of they will go out into the world and they will have to earn their living, which is a good thing. However, what is not taught is that women will still carry the emotional load. Now, the emotional load means, I'm not talking about the domestic load, because the domestic load is still carried by women. So the domestic load is what we can actually see, which is that women still do the majority of the housework, still do the majority of
Poor hands.
hands that do dishes, yes, still do the majority of it. And that whenever a man actually puts an input, we have to be grateful to them, rather than saying, you're doing your share, fine, I'm going out to work, let's share the load. No, it's still majority is done by women. When I'm talking about the emotional load, that's an additional thing. The emotional load is, where are my shoes, mummy? Can you make me a costume for tomorrow's fancy dress thing? Oh, your husband's saying to you, it's Auntie May's 90th birthday. Can you get her a present? And then somebody coming down, where are my keys? It's like we're expected to have this incredible bank of knowledge, which takes our time, takes our energy, and it's never acknowledged. So that's called the emotional load. And if you try and look at what you're actually doing every single week, you'd be astounded how much emotional load you're carrying.
I love what you said, and what came to mind was I'm the go-to person if somebody's looking to find something in the house. I know where everything is. So it goes to show you who organizes does all the organizing. So yeah, I just thought that was hilarious. Gwenno, what can we do to make the most out of our relationship with men and women? What can we do in terms of understanding? And there's a whole biological difference as well. Like, men have more testosterone than women. So that's a given, right? But, in understanding all of this, do you think that we really do need to understand on a deeper level, how men are made and how women are made, and the energies of men and the energy of women, because it's physical, biological, emotional, all this stuff together. So what do you think is the best thing that we can do to help understand each other so that we can have better relationships? Because there is problems with relationships now. We see a lot of marriages breaking up, a lot of separations. So what is your best advice in terms of getting the best relationship with a man and a woman, that type of relationship?
Well, I don't know about advice, but I do wish that they would put relationship education on school
curriculum,
because I think that we find out about how men function through experience. So I can only give advice on my own experience.
Yeah. And it's true. It's the same for all of us, isn't it? Because that's how, we create meaning and we create feelings around stuff that happens to us in a relationship, be it a man or a woman, and we make that mean something, and we have a feeling about that, and we carry that through. This is all part of conditioning, isn't it? And, it starts in the family, and then we've got the peer pressure that you spoke about, and then, we go into the schools and so on, and it just keeps getting reinforced and reinforced. So I think in my personal experience, there's a lot of understanding about how men work and how women work. The energy, this whole masculine, feminine energy that we talk about. So we know that feminine energy is more nurturing, caring, that type of an energy, whereas men is physical, the warrior, as you say. So when we understand that there's certain things that are a given and that we don't make it wrong, and we embrace it to get the best out of each other, I suppose, that would be what I would consider.
I think so, because in some ways you've got several aspects of society. You've got the working environment, you've got the home environment, you've also got the emotional side, you've got, you know, dreams and ambitions, and all of those different things are very, very different for us all. And one of the things I would definitely say about the work environment, because I do a lot of work with people in business. I've worked in business since 1980. So that's an entirely different situation to the home, for example.
Mm.
And what we need to be very careful of as women is that we don't become men in the working environment. Now, one of the things we also have to bear in mind is one of the most important people, in my belief, who has contributed more than anybody to women's emancipation is Mary Stokes. Mary Stokes created the first family planning clinics.
Ah,
She gave women choice about reproduction. Now, my mother was one of 7 children. Her mother, no, so my great grandmother on my mother's side had 7 children. Of those 7 children, 3 men went off to university. The 4 women went off to service, right? Jump one generation. So then my mother's generation, there were 7 children. And again, the men were, they went to university, and my mother went to a teacher training college.
mm.
So we historically have been treated differently.
Yeah.
It's only in the last 30 years, over centuries, that we are trying to fit into the working environment in a different way. I mean, the last time we did that was before the Industrial Revolution, when men and women worked alongside each other in the fields.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to say really is that women are going to be the ones who will change, because we're always accommodating men's needs.
Yeah.
Don't become a man. Don't become a man. Don't be, I mean, if we look at what's happened during the COVID crisis, and it's really been, I think we look back at this in years to come as being as crucial as the Industrial Revolution, because there's several things that will have happened. First and foremostly, the most successful results with the policies that have been put into place have been done by women. So if you look at the Prime Minister of New Zealand, the Prime Minister of Scotland, the Prime Minister of Germany, and so many other prime ministers who are female, they have had great success with the COVID crisis. New Zealand is COVID free. Wow. Jacinda Ardern has developed her own feminine approach towards leadership. She doesn't have to be a man in leadership. Yeah. Theresa May was a man. Thatcher was a man.
Yeah.
Nowadays, we can see new patterns of leadership emerging, which are beneficial. We can realize that 51% of the world's population is female, and that we have some great ideas. And those great ideas, they have done so much better than Trump, for example, or Boris Johnson. And that's because they are willing to listen. They are willing to work as part of the team.
Different approach, yeah.
The hierarchical, I'm the boss, you listen to me, doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that has been beneficial to women.
And we can see all that breaking down, the whole hierarchy stuff.
It's all good. The other thing that has happened is that I worked in equal opportunities for 12 years, 13 years, whatever it was. And I always used to try and promote work-life balance. And there was always resistance about work-life balance, because people used to think, oh yeah, but that's only going to benefit women, which is a load of codswallop. Work-life balance benefits everybody.
Yes.
Nobody wants to be working, and all that presenteeism, nobody wants to be working 10 hours a day. You can't be, you cannot give your best working 10 hours a day. So there was great resistance about flexible working, working from home. What COVID has shown is that we can be very effective working from home,
Yeah.
even more effective than if we have to spend an hour in a traffic jam going to our work, an hour coming back.
Yeah. Yeah.
All that wastage of petrol, time, resources. People are fresher, people have better ideas, people are more productive, they do their work, they finish, they go and have a life.
And
that's been really good for women.
It's brilliant because I've seen that now. The people who have got a taste of working from home don't want to go back to the 9-to-5 job.
They don't. Why would they? You know, I think it's what will happen is it'll be a marriage of both. You know, some work at home, some work in the office because of social activities and all of those things. No man is an island, and you know, all of those things that will make us work more effectively.
Yeah.
The other thing that has happened is that men have started to realize for the very first time how hard it is to look after children.
Yeah.
When children have had to be homeschooled during this period of time, men have had to take their share of the domestic responsibility, and they, I think, have started to respect women for what they are doing.
I've heard that actually, Gwenno, quite a lot, and a lot of people have said that they never actually realised because they were never in that position to realise. You know what I mean? And that's how we all, women or men, that's how we learn when we start to realise stuff and then appreciate it. So, Gwenno, look, we're coming to the end. We could talk about this all day. It's really intriguing. It's so interesting, and it's so fresh that all this is changing, and you know, that things are changing and shifting, and it's just fresh. That's the word that I would use for this. So, Gwenno, do you have any last things that you want to add to wrap this up, or anything, any piece of advice, or that you'd like to share with people? Any last minute nuggets that you'd like to throw out there?
Well, I think the very last thing that I write in the book is never give up. And one of my favorite expressions, yes, I broke a horse in when I was a kid. I had to save up for it. I had to go spud picking. I had to go stacking bales, washing milk churns for my dad, waiting in restaurants, blah, de, blah, de, blah, de, blah. And I didn't have enough money to buy a saddle, but I did have enough money to buy a halter, and I broke the horse in myself. And my favorite expression really is, if you fall off the horse, get back on it before it gallops off into the dust. So that's my piece of advice. Never give up.
Love it. And you certainly have just taken the bull by the horns, as they say, and really gone for it. And you've never given up, Gwenno. You're just a woman on a mission. And I think a bit of a warrior, the warrior woman.
I'm the wild Westphalian warrior woman.
I love it. Gwenno, where can people find you?
Well, I am available on LinkedIn, Gwenno Dafydd, that's Gwenno DAF for Freddie, YDD. If you Google me, there's tons of stuff there. I have a website, Gwenno Dafydd. I have a link tree, so it's https://linktr.ee/Gwenno Dafydd.
Wow, you have that off by heart, Gwenno.
I do.
Brilliant. That link tree is a fantastic link. You've got everything in there. It's brilliant.
Testimonials, people I've worked with, all sorts of really interesting things. Go and have a have a little rummage.
Right. Listen, Gwenno, it's been very interesting. It's been a wild conversation, and really thank you for showing up, and thank you for sharing all your insights and the information that you have helped to empower people and to have better relationships with each other. So thank you, Gwenno. Take care. Have a great day.
Thank you. You're welcome. And thanks for the opportunity.